Welcome to the Speed League podcast from Southern California. I'm Kelly Anson here with Ryan Berkman, and we're talking San Diego Supercross Recap. And for sure, the best race of the season by quite a large margin.
There was a lot going on in this one. And again, another mutter. We were saying, in the last podcast, like, okay, this is going to give us some clarity. And it didn't give me too much clarity, but it was still, okay, get a feeling of the guys a little more. And it was complete chaos again, but it was definitely fun to watch.
Yeah, because we technically had two mutters in a row, but the conditions of this race versus the conditions of the last race were drastically different, especially in the main events.
Yeah, it was. I mean, still mud flying and people sliding out. It seemed like, especially in the main. I mean, for seeing all those top guys go down, you're like, dude, what is going on?
Yeah, and also seeing, it was muddy enough that we were seeing some specific guys that have that talent in the mud do exceptionally well last night. I mean, obviously, Aaron Plessinger we'll talk about. I want to get through 250s first. I'm so stoked to talk about AP because what an awesome story and situation and everything. But I want to talk 250s first. But even in the 250s, Nate Thrasher winning the main event in very mixed conditions. And he is actually starting to kind of develop a reputation as like a mud or mixed conditions rider himself.
Yeah, definitely Nate Thrasher came back from the dead, starting A1 21st and then in the mutter 18th and then freaking dominating and then getting that first. So it was cool to see him, pull it out and actually show his like mud riding skills.
Yeah, especially after, he's like now in sort of a comeback scenario from a really, really bad crash that he had last season that he was coming back from. And I think he said, on the podium, I wasn't walking for a long time or was off the bike for a long time and all that kind of stuff. So super cool to see him recovering from that. I was wondering if they were actually going to play a replay of that crash, and I don't think they did, but it was a bad one.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. So I'm super stoked for him. It was like great to see him up there. And then another guy too, Garrett Marchbanks. I mean, 2 podiums in a row. I mean, he is, one of those guys that you think, okay, he has decent speed, but to get 2 podiums in a row, I mean, that has to be, freaking he's stoked.
Yeah, and I don't think it's any coincidence that it was in bad conditions races. I mean, I think, is a lot of times stronger in outdoor type of stuff, a little bit rougher conditions. And I mean, obviously just the mud too. And, we see this same thing happen in like MotoGP a lot too, where there's just a certain subset of guys that are really good in mixed conditions. And that's just where they thrive. And Marchbank seems to be one of those guys.
Definitely. And then rounding off the podium, Jordan Smith still, like hanging around. He like still retains that points lead, which is more than Chase Sexton can say. So yeah, I mean, he 3 podiums in a row. I mean, dry, wet, all that stuff. I mean, he's definitely looking good. He's the top guy in like my eyes over Hampshire even now. I know that Hampshire beat him in the dry conditions, but just his like consistency so far, 3 like podiums in a row is mad respect.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely stepped it up for this year. I honestly thought at this race he was kind of unimpressive. Like, I mean, he let the leaders just get away from him, and sort of only ended up with a podium at the end of the day because Hampshire went down. But he's doing well, and he's playing the consistency game, which Hampshire is not. Hampshire had a very bad night.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. And it seems like, again, like the last 2 races in the mud, Hampshire has just been kind of, making those mistakes and like falling behind, and he like ended up with a 6th, which again, I mean, isn't where, you like thought someone like Hampshire when you drafted him, he was going to end up getting, 6th and then he got, what did he get last week? I'm trying to,
I believe
9th.
it was ninth.
Yeah.
But here's the thing though, is that ninth last week, I kind of just ascribed to chaos. It was a crazy mud race. But this one, it was like kind of he made some mistakes and he threw away what could have been at least a podium or a win.
So, and hypothetically, say that you like drafted today and you had, right there, you had Jordan Smith, RJ Hampshire ready to be picked up. Who would you pick up for the rest of the season?
I'm still gonna say Hampshire. I'm gonna put my faith in Hampshire here, even though he's not on my team in fantasy. Hampshire, I think, is the strongest guy as long as conditions are good on a regular supercross track, but you throw some insanity at him like this, then he's going to have some problems. And I mean, that's an issue for a guy to have. You know, you want to have someone that can handle some mixed conditions, but when the track's clean, when it's dry and he can just go all out, I think he's the dude.
And then speaking of people that struggle in the mud, like I know that Joe Shimoda ended up getting fourth in the main, which is obviously awesome. But like seeing him struggle in the heats and just struggle all day long, I was like, "Come on, bro, you got this. Come on, Joe, keep it up."
Yeah. I mean, fourth isn't even where he wants to be either, but it's a lot better than, bike dies on lap one like it did last week. So, yeah, he's definitely still looking for a better time. So that's Joe. Rounding out the top five, Levi Kitchen. Levi is fast, but
Yes.
Levi is squirrely. And I'm starting to see that more and more. And he seems like one of those guys that it's like, okay, you have the speed, just focus on reining it in.
Yeah, exactly. And then he even qualified number one overall. So I was like, man, okay, Kitchen's looking good, and I did have higher hopes and expectations for him than fifth. But I mean, if he could reel it in, he's definitely going to be one of those top guys, like you said, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I mean, there was for sure some chaos going on there. Who else did we have? Mitchell Oldenburg in seventh. You got him on your team, right? He was looking pretty good, especially in the heat race.
Yeah. Yeah, he was. I was like stoked with him, just kind of like middle of the road. I mean, that's pretty much where I like predicted him. I thought that he was going to finish around there, and he ended up doing it. So, hey, what more can you expect from a guy like Oldenburg? That's pretty much, where I expect him to finish.
Yeah. There are definitely some guys in the 250s that are kind of sneaking up and scoring a lot of points that no one really thought of. Number one being number 100, Anthony Borden, who is now in Speed League rankings, number 7 in terms of points scored.
Yeah, so I actually subbed him in this week. I like had that unfortunate injury with a Volan, so I was like, okay, who am I going to get? I even thought about Yoder because he's been doing pretty good, but I was like, you know what? I think Bourdon's gonna, kind of keep up his, keep up riding well, and he got a 10th, which is where I predicted him. So I got him like dead on. So I was stoked with that pickup. Always to like get someone off the waiver, sub him in, and think, okay, is he going to do well? Where should I predict him? And to get that guy dead on, I mean, that's probably more points than I would have scored with like Volan possibly anyway. So I was definitely stoked for that.
Yeah, the further down guys are actually harder to get prediction points for, because I mean, someone who might finish, a 12th or at 8th or something like that, besides, as opposed to some other guys, like uh, a top guy of Cooper Webb or Chase Sexton or something like that. We're like, I'm going to move him around in my predictions from second, third, whatever it is. Obviously, that didn't work out too well for me with Chase Sexton this week, but yeah, the lower down guys are a little bit harder to predict.
Definitely they are. And like going down the list, Beaumer, you're like guy that you were super stoked about, in A1, you're thinking he was going to be the next big thing. He was down there in 16th, didn't really have the showing that he wanted. I mean, maybe again in a more of, better conditions, maybe he could do better, but yeah, I wasn't too stoked on that 16th for him.
Yeah, I mean, it was not a good race, but I mean, it's kind of cool that even at this point, third race in a rookie's career, you're expecting him to be, better, top 6, top 7, something like that. So I think he's going to turn it around. It should be a dry race next week in Anaheim too, and he has been a really really good starter, and I was seeing that in the heats last night too, and I think the main it just didn't work out. So he'll be back.
So do you think he's like someone you should like keep around on your team, or should you try to look elsewhere, or like what's your opinion on that?
Well, this is very close to my heart since he's on my team, and I'm not
Yeah.
going anywhere on Bomer.
Okay.
I'm not even close to giving up. So, yeah. In fact, I'll probably keep him. This may be tweaked after qualifying for the next race, but I'm expecting him 6, 7.
Okay, fair enough. We'll see about that. And then also someone down towards like the bottom of the bottom of the leaderboard. But I want to give love to Alexander Nagy. Actually,
That's right.
Kelly met him probably, what was it, like 7 or 8 years ago. He's a friend of a friend. Kelly was like, yeah, man, um, talking to him and everything. And he normally doesn't make mains, but he's, like relatively close. I mean, maybe not, 1 or 2 off the like transfer spot, but he's, there like every single week, riding his heart out. And he actually got the transfer straight from the Heat this week. Like he didn't even have to go through like the LCQ. So props to Alexander Nagy. It was cool to see him get through.
Serious props to Alexander Nagy. Yeah, it was. I was living someplace with some roommates, and I think one of my roommates was like doing a photo shoot for some videography or something for him. And yeah, I came over to my house and I talked to him for a while. And I mean, that dude is full privateer. I think for the majority of the time he's been doing this, I mean, he's traveling around in the back of a van from Supercross race to Supercross race. And I mean, he's really consistent about making the night show. But I mean, obviously, there's really fast guys that are high up here. So we always watch and root for Alex Nagy. So, Alex Nagy, if you're listening, you're the man. Keep it up. Love to see another main event.
Exactly. And then down there in last, I just want to real quick breeze over Phil Nicoletti. He, got 22nd the first race because his bike didn't start, fair enough. And then fourth, and then 22nd again. So, I mean, definitely he's like one of those guys that I know that people have on their team and, are like hoping that he could at least try to get top tens. I mean, like, where do you think he's going to be next week for like A2?
Yeah, that's speaking of hard people to predict. Phil Nicoletti's fast. If he can just keep away from the bad luck, I definitely think he's someone to keep around. And you could see him. I'm not expecting him to consistently give performances like he did last week, but 8 to 11 area, I'd probably put Phil most weeks. But yeah, I think he was down right after the whole shot line on the
Yeah.
first lap or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. Yeah, bad times, but anyways, okay, let's move on to 450s because there's a shit ton to talk about in the 450 class this week, and I don't want to run out of time. AP, I have a question for you with
Yes.
AP, and I'm on a total AP kick right now, and don't want to appear too forward, but is he a possible championship contender in the 450 class? Do you think?
I think that he has a chance of, getting podium on the championship contender scale, if you will. I just don't think in the long haul, once the tracks start clearing up and just over a whole season, I don't think that he will be able to like outrace, Tomac, Jet, and like people like that. I mean, I know that friggin' this week he like qualified first, got first. He's the points leader now. He's going to be repping the Red 7 next week. Um, he is way overperforming his like projected spot. So I mean, like if you drafted Plessinger, I mean, at least you have that. Hey, look, he's a guy that's gonna overperform where I drafted him, but I don't think that he is going to be able to win the championship.
Okay, yeah, and I will totally agree with you on that. I am not putting money on AP to win the championship, but his speed right now is definitely more than it has been since he's been in the 450 class just generally. And granted, this race and even the last one were conditions that were perfectly suited to Aaron Plessinger. So there's a reason he's, arguably overperforming right now. But I think he's a guy that can be around and be in like the conversation for the whole championship. And I will stamp right now that I believe he gets at least one more win this season.
Yeah, I could totally see that. Another win. In the like complete dry conditions in like Anaheim 1, he got fourth, which like that is probably where I would say that things average out. That he like finished this the season probably fourth in points. Kind of where he finished Anaheim 1.
Yeah. But
We'll see.
so sick to see him finally take the win. And I mean, watching that happen, I've got AP on my team, so obviously I'm rooting for him. But I mean, I love the guy even aside from that. He's a cartoon character of, a supercross rider in the best possible way. But in the heat, obviously he qualifies first, and then his heat race, he's behind Roxon and tracks Roxon down and passes him and wins his heat. And I texted you before the main event and said, I think tonight could be AP's night. I want him to win tonight. And in the main event, it's AP behind Roxon in the main event. And I was like, he's already done this once tonight. He's going to make it happen. And Roxon made it easy for him by going down. But it was just his night.
Speaking of guys tracking people down, though, I do believe, the guy that got second, the number 2, Cooper Webb, he was charging Plessinger, making up time. And I do think that if Sexton didn't take those team orders to get in Webb's way, I think that Webb would have tracked down Plessinger and at least had a photo finish of the freaking most exciting battle of the season so far.
Yeah, I was very split between being nervous for AP, especially after his heartbreak in the last few laps last year, wanting to see him win versus also wanting to see Webb catch up and see like that brutal battle. Because Webb is like my favorite guy to watch just track somebody down and out racecraft them. His racecraft is unbelievable. But yeah, the Sexton thing was weird. I don't know if we never saw like another replay from another angle of what happened, right?
So I found actually on my Instagram multiple angles of that incident, and like a few people are like saying a few different things. So it wasn't blatant like he went straight through the turn or like brake checked him or anything like that. Sexton did hold his line, but he didn't move out of the way at all. And he
Yeah.
kind of, made Webb go into him. And then like when they kind of connected, Sexton even kind of turned in like front of Webb. So my thing is, and I get that Sexton's one of the fastest guys and he kind of, has a chip on his shoulder, how he like should be battling.
That doesn't matter. If you're
If
being
you
lapped,
are
it
a
doesn't
lapped
matter.
rider and you see, freaking second place coming behind you because you know that first just went by, you pull over, you totally get out of the way and don't even make it an option. Someone could say, oh, wow, did he do that on purpose? Did he not? You should make it so obvious that you're getting the hell out of the way that there's like no discussion. So I think that it wasn't, 100% intentional, but I think he kind of stayed in the way a
He
little
didn't
on
mind
purpose.
if he was going to slow Webb down to give his teammate
Yeah.
a little help. Like I agree with that actually, and one of the other sort of main, what I would call an incriminating factor, is if you go back before that incident and watch. So that little incident happened a couple corners, like right after the finish line. And if you watch Sexton come over the finish line, he gives a full 180-degree look back to see Webb coming behind him. So there's no argument he could make of, oh, I didn't know he was there or something like that. He definitely knew.
Definitely. So then rounding out the podium, Barsha back up there. Kind of, this is sort of how last season went for a Barsha too. Started off a little slow, and then, boom, all of a sudden he's right there battling for some podium. So obviously he's over whatever sickness he had last week, and he was freaking on the gas. He looked good.
Yeah, that was another guy that I had on my team. I had a real good week this week, and my predictions were nowhere this week. And we're going to post as we always do photos of our matchups from our league on social media at Speed League Fantasy on Instagram and Facebook. If you want to check them out, what we're talking about. But yeah, my predictions were terrible. And in my defense, we're kind of unsure what track conditions were going to be, and I predicted people the wrong way in a lot of those. But yeah, really, really good ride from Justin Barsha, especially coming out of an illness. He managed to hold on for the last podium position. Jet Lawrence made his way all the way up to fourth, but fourth is not first. So I believe you owe me a cheeseburger.
I was wondering if you were going to bring that up. I was, what are the chances he remembers that I just said that jokingly?
Oh, come on. You know how
it wasn't
cheap
even
I am. I
serious.
will hold you to that cheeseburger.
Fair enough. I mean, granted, when I made that bet, I didn't know that it was going to be another mutter, and I didn't know that Jason Anderson was going to be obviously holding him up the whole race. I mean, on purpose. And man, Jason Anderson, get out of the
Yeah.
way, dude. What are you doing?
I'm really curious actually if there was something that happened off camera that we didn't see, because obviously they did the split screen thing for a while on the broadcast, but the focus was AP up front and what he was doing. But we saw a lot of Jet and Anderson having a good battle, but nothing that seemed untoward.
Nothing. And like what I heard is like Jet thought that Jason was holding him up. And like that's okay, maybe something to say, if freaking it's like a no-name guy at the bottom or it's a lapper. But for you to be battling for fourth and fifth place, with like a big name like Jason Anderson, if you are faster than him, well then freaking get around him. I
Yeah,
mean, like,
yeah,
and I
yeah.
think that that's
That's
why
I hadn't heard that. That's a weird excuse
and I
because
guess
yeah,
that's
he's
why
holding you
Jet.
up. Okay, pass him then.
Yeah, exactly. And like Jet did like come out and apologize and say, "Hey, if there's anything, any fines coming Anderson's way, I will pay them. I was completely out of line. My bad, bro." So at least he had some post race clarity, I guess you could say. To okay, I was kind of in the moment, and I'm sure that his like expectations for himself are first every race. And kind of feeling like maybe he like was faster than Anderson, but just but Anderson riding really defensive, but that's
Yeah.
nothing you could get mad at someone for.
Yeah, but whatever happened, it got heated, and I'm assuming anyone who's listening to this probably saw because they played it on the broadcast. But yeah, I mean, Jet wanted to talk to Anderson as soon as he came over the finish line, and they kind of got up in each other's face real quick. And I think like Anderson started to take off, and Jet grabbed him by the helmet, and as soon as he did that,
That was not a
Anderson like
good move.
ripped his helmet down by the face guard part. So yeah, it got like super super heated. But
And
I mean,
really,
Anderson is known for kind of not taking heat from people. I've seen him get DQ'd from a night before for smacking somebody in the head.
I don't think that any fines or like penalties or points or anything should be taken away from like, any of them. I mean, no punches were thrown, no kicks or anything like that. So I think, hey, they were heated in the moment. So be it. Just live to fight another day.
I kind of hope nothing comes of it really either. But yeah, we'll see. We haven't seen anything yet. So, um, anyways, yeah.
Dylan
So Jet.
Ferrandis. Oh, sorry, I was already moving
Uh,
on because I'm like so
okay,
excited
no,
about
no,
Dylan Ferrandis.
no. I want to talk about Dylan Ferrandis too because Dylan Ferrandis. I
That's
don't
my
think I
boy.
saw him. I don't think I saw him on the screen one time the entire race, but he just still logged another really good finish.
Yeah, I mean, talk about consistency. I mean, dry in the mud, you know, um, what have you. He got fifth, sixth, sixth. I mean, that's just super money, super consistent where you want to be. And it seems like, all the drama going on and people crashing, and Sexton wins and then Sexton crashes and Roxon, you know, uh, people all over the place making mistakes, and just Ferrandis is like, okay, I'm here. Freaking cameras don't even need to be on me. I'm just gonna ride my race, and I'm just gonna finish fifth or sixth every race. You guys do what you do.
Yeah. Ferrandis, not only consistency, but overperforming consistency. Because I think
Hmm.
we had him ranked on our rankings 12th, 13th.
Hmm.
Yeah, he's killing it. Super, super good ride for Ferrandis and beating, he's on this, his satellite Honda team, non factory, and beats Hunter Lawrence coming in seventh on the factory Honda.
Yeah, and like Hunter Lawrence, he had a pretty good, I mean, like outing. I mean, to get seventh after how his season started, is awesome. So it was nice to like see him up there getting top tens the past 2 weeks. So I mean, I think this is probably where he's going to finish most races. It'd be around that 7 to like 10 mark. We'll like see, this week in like Anaheim if it is dry. Hopefully, we could get a dry race because I want to see some actual dry conditions. But I think probably 7th through 10th is where he's going to be.
Yeah, we have not seen Hunter Lawrence in a dry main event yet.
Correct.
So hopefully he'll do well. Some people that did not do well, and there are big names that didn't do well, and unfortunately, one of them is Ken Roxon. And I have on my notes that I want to talk about on for the race, kickstart Kenny with a sad face next to it, and I think that's the story of Ken's night.
So I like texted you actually when I saw him there. He like, crashed. Okay, wasn't really like a bad crash. He was getting up and he was sitting there trying to kick his bike and then get it in neutral, kick his bike, and it kind of went 40s in first. Okay, fine neutral, kick his. And I said, Kelly, when is Suzuki going to put a freaking electric start on their bike? I mean, it's nothing like, oh my gosh, they have the technology, of freaking electric start. I mean, it's just basic stuff that like every bike has. Why can't they have it on the bike, especially on a, factory supercross bike? Get it on there. Get it on there.
And I mean, Suzuki makes street bikes that have electric starts too. It's not like they have never heard of that technology before. But yeah, it did kind of like seem like a video from a bygone era. Just like seeing
Mm-hmm.
him just sitting there kicking his bike because nobody's really doing that anymore. But that sucks because I mean Ken was riding like really really good. I mean good in the heat race, and I mean he crashed right out of the lead. I think Plessinger closed him in and was probably going to get him, but I mean, he was on for another podium.
I know, and like I actually thought that Ken Roxon was either gonna win or like get second because last week in the mud, Ken Roxon actually had almost identical lap times to Chase Sexton. So I thought, okay, Chase first, Roxon second. That was my, guess prediction for the race if I was just predicting, a top 8 or a top 10. And he like did have the speed, but yeah, just unfortunate circumstances for him because he was fast. He was fast.
Totally. And some other fast guys that had bad nights. Sexton went from the best start anyone's ever had in the history of Supercross last week to one of the worst, at least first
Mm-hmm.
laps.
Mm-hmm.
Bad start and then ends up on the ground at a certain point. And I think kind of rode his ass off to get back to eighth, but eighth is not where Sexton wants to be.
No, it's not. I mean, like everyone, had like, oh my gosh, Sexton's the new mud rider. Okay, Sexton's gonna do great. And it was just a big letdown of, confidence and also losing the like red plate like that too. And I feel like, Sexton thinks it's between him and like Jet. So to see Jet kind of struggle the past 2 weeks and then Jet finishing off the podium, if like Sexton was able to get a win or at least second this week, that would just really give him that big boost of points and confidence and almost, maybe rattle Jet a little bit saying, oh my gosh, now this is getting away from me. So seeing, Sexton finish back in eighth, that was just a bummer for that whole camp.
And giving up the red plate to his teammate,
Mm-hmm.
AP, rocking the red plate going into next week. I mean, yeah, I actually would love to be there in Anaheim to watch AP roll out on the track with his red plate. That's got to be a good feeling for him.
Yeah.
And then again, another super top guy that had a bad night right behind him is Eli Tomac in ninth.
Yeah. Eli had a rough one, A1 ninth, and then second race San Francisco second. So we think, okay, maybe just, the first race jitters, maybe he was feeling it out, going to be another mutter. And then he finished back in ninth again. Um, so I mean, it was just some like bad luck. But like Tomac's definitely going to pull it out. I mean, we all know that Tomac's one of the top guys, and I actually thought that he was going to get podium this week, but it's a rough week for him.
So who do you think is going to be looking the best going into a dry race in Anaheim again next week? I mean, obviously, dry race Anaheim. The most recent result we have of this is Jet dominating. Is he just going to come back and make that happen and be the new Anaheim guy?
So I didn't lose faith in like Jet after his subpar finish in San Francisco, and he didn't even make the podium this week. I know it was another mutter. My faith in Jet has come down a little bit. I mean, like preseason, I was, probably at, maybe it was like 50-50 if like, he was going to win the championship. I mean, for sure, number one guy that like I would pick, but it was still, okay, how's Tomac going to look? How's Sexton going to look? Webb, Roxon. And then after A1, I was like, okay, my like guess is up to 80% or like 85% he was going to win the championship. And then over these past 2 weeks, it's gone back down to probably, 60% again. So, I mean, is he still the favorite? Probably, but not as for sure as I thought after A1.
Well, there's a lot of fast guys, but I still think he's the fastest, and we've just had some weird conditions for the last two. I like Jet for next week, and he's who I would bet on being number one. And one of actually the reasons why is going to be a triple crown, and he's kind of going to have three chances to average out to the top. And I think he'll probably be able to pull that off in the dry.
Yeah, I agree, definitely. Going down to 13th, I mean, a guy that I just want to mention real quick is Adam Cianciarulo. I mean, he has so many guys above him that were on their ass during the race. I mean, literally crashed and were down, or either kickstarting their bike or like pulling their bike out of the mud and were way behind. And they ended up getting up, passing Cianciarulo, moving up the ranks, while like he just pretty much cruised around in like 13th the whole race.
Yeah,
And
was he on the ground at any point, or did anything happen? I mean, we don't really know because there was
I
so
didn't
much
see,
happening elsewhere. But yeah, that's definitely not anything that popped up.
from what I like saw during the race, he was kind of cruising around in, the 12th, 13th spot the whole time. So I mean, maybe he like did have an issue. Maybe he like did crash and the broadcast didn't show it. I mean, granted, I like wasn't there, but yeah, it was just really disappointing. I mean, I know that we haven't had too many good things to like say about Cian Cerullo, but still, you would think that if guys are on the ground, he would have finished, a top 8, or maybe even top 6, because he's just one of those guys you think, okay, if he has a clean race, he could actually compete, but he just doesn't really have the speed this year.
Yeah. He did end up beating Justin Cooper in 14th, who got the whole shot, who I think he looked like he got Sexton's start magic from last week. I mean, he was a bike length ahead of anybody by the time they got to that first corner, but he ended up on the ground at a certain point too, around the same time Tomac did.
Yeah, like he's like one of those guys too that like we had, really high hopes for. And then going from 8th A1 to like not even making the main in like San Francisco, and then getting the whole shot and getting 14th. I mean, I would say Justin Cooper, and also, I mean, going down the list, Malcolm Stewart and like Christian Craig. Those are the three just major
Whoa.
disappointments to me of the season. I mean, especially Malcolm Stewart.
Yeah,
Just
I think you can't even compare what's going on with Cooper though to both of the Husky guys. I mean, they're just having a mix of just horrible luck and I mean just everything you can imagine. I mean, Malcolm Stewart is on the ground every single time they turn the camera to him.
yeah, he is, and like Craig too. I mean, to get 20th, 14, 20th, and again, we're like kind of bouncing around a little bit, but it's just I don't know what's going on with Craig, because like he was doing, like all right, like you would think that he would be doing, so much better, especially on that factory ride. And I remember after A1, I said, like I don't know if it's something with the bike or like the team or like what's going on. And like you said, oh no, they'll be fine. And it's been nothing but like disaster after disaster for the two teammates. So it does kind of like make me think like, is it something with the bike, or like what the
And
heck's going on?
but I can't really imagine that they have something that severe with the bike that's causing both of these what should be really high level riders to have results like this. And I mean, these are both super experienced, veteran supercross riders, and they're getting trounced by someone like Jorge Prado, who just got another 11th. I mean, this is his third supercross race, and he hasn't finished outside the top 13.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's been super bad for them. And actually, they just did like a little meet and greet. Me and my wife were like thinking we were possibly going to go, didn't end up going. But I was just thinking, it's like facing all your fans that like come out to meet you after getting those like crappy finishes. Like it can't feel good. I'm sure that, like people even ask Christian Craig, like, hey, look, what's going on? Because like normally Christian Craig is one of those guys that he always does like a post race, like Instagram post, or kind of, okay, this is what happened this week. This is how I'm feeling. This is how I'm going to do it next week. And he's been kind of silent about what's going on. So actually, I was looking at some of his posts, and like people are like saying in the comments, "Hey man, what's going on? Why are you leaving us in the dark? Come on, like, and say like how you're feeling, what's going on?" And he's just
Yeah,
not.
I wouldn't want
So
to go make vlogs at that point for sure. I'd want to go figure it out so I have some good news to bring back to the fans.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's tough for that crew right now. Definitely.
Yeah.
Um, so like someone that I want to talk about, actually, in the last podcast, I actually said McElrath was like fool's gold. And I said, it's like someone like Dean Wilson. I would rather leave in Dean Wilson than McElrath, even though McElrath had a lot more fantasy points. So I was looking at qualifying last week, and actually McElrath finished one position ahead of Wilson. So I was thinking, okay, I mean, like McElrath has more points, qualified better, and I fell into the trap. And I substituted McElrath in for Wilson, and then Wilson ends up getting a 10th, and McElrath is 16th. So I should start listening to my own advice more and not, fall into the pressure of the, substitutes.
That being said, McElrath is actually where is he right now? He's 12th in our total speed league points. So I mean, well within the realm of someone if he's available in your league and you're looking for a fourth guy in your 450 team, I would definitely pick him up. And I say that because
Yes,
I
you would.
just did. I did.
Yeah, I saw that.
I actually just picked him up because Hill has been just after a great season last year, nowhere so far. And maybe that's an overreaction to the mixed conditions, but McElrath is outperforming him to the point that I thought it was necessary to make the switch.
Yeah, and then going down to 22nd place, Vince Freezy. I feel like the Supercross gods are just frowning, upon him. And it seems like, since the whole issue with all those riders at like A1, he's just been able to do nothing, and just getting last in the main. And, his, um, you know, first race, Anaheim won, last in the main. San Francisco didn't make the main, and then last in the main again. I mean, this is the bottom of the barrel for like Vince Freezy, and I bet that he's getting a little discouraged at this point.
Yeah, and his speed may not be what he wants it to be right now, and when there's this many other fast people in the class and all he can do is just resort to taking them out in a corner, that's not much for a successful competition. So is what it is, Vince. um, is there anybody else you want to sort of talk about before we maybe just talk about some predictions and picks for next week?
No, I think that pretty much rounds it out.
Okay, so one little piece of news: Jorge Prado, it does sound like, is postponing his return to Europe, and going to race one more race. He's going to be in Anaheim too. I subbed him in again. The guy's been having really, really good results, and for sure worth a sub in your league. Um, anyone else sort of on the edge there that you might look at picking them up if they're available in someone's league?
So I am like dealing with the whole like Voland issue again. So I subbed in Bourdon again. I was actually looking at Hunter Yoder even. He like had an all right finish, but I ended up going with Bourdon again. I don't know the current extent of like Voland's injury or like how long he's like going to be out, but I would probably assume that he's not going to race this week either. So we'll be tracking all that information, and we'll post it on our social media once we know for sure. But just in case, Bourdon's in there for me.
Got it. Okay. Um, who you got to win 450 and 250 next week?
So I'm not the king of hot takes or anything like that. I mean, I think that Jet definitely is the favorite if I had to bet my life on it. But I mean, I've really liked what I've seen by Cooper Webb so far this year. It's like I'm really impressed with his speed, um, on the new bike and everything like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if Cooper Webb actually took the win. So if I had to do someone besides the favorite, Cooper Webb.
Okay. I've seen Cooper be strong in Triple Crown events before too. So I think that's actually where he got his first 450 win, was a Triple Crown event in Anaheim. So yeah, that'll be good for Cooper. I probably am going to go Jet in the 450 class for the reasons I talked about before. And then, yeah, keeping it, I mean, kind of general or predictable right now, even though he hasn't had a good last few races, I'd say RJ and the 250s.
Yeah, I would definitely have to agree with you. I mean, even though Jordan Smith has freaking looked awesome, on the gas, I would probably lean towards Hampshire. But if Smith or even Kitchen, was up there battling for the lead, that would definitely not surprise me. And I'm hoping that like Joe in the dry too. I mean, Joe's always a fierce competitor, so it's going to
Yeah.
be it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, sometimes the Triple Crown events, the results surprise us too, especially
Mhm.
after results kind of get compiled for all three races. We see some things happen, but yeah, I mean, Levi Kitchen, really, really fast. If he can, get a good start and be consistent for the shorter main events, he might be the dude.
Yeah.
But Anyways, all right. That I think is going to wrap us up for this week. Again, follow us on social media if you want to see any of this stuff at Speed League Fantasy. You can play for free at speedleaguefantasy.com. And we'll see you next week after Anaheim 2.
Real quick, can I step in, Kelly? One thing that I want to
Okay.
say: Triple Crown, the scoring is a little different.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, let's talk about this.
Yeah, so I normally for the main event whole shot is 5, but since there's technically 3 main events, the whole shots are 3 points, and you get them for each race.
That's right. And you also get, let's see, I think we score some points for main event wins as well, right?
Yeah, and that's 3 also.
Okay, so whole shots and race wins, you're each going to get a 3-point bonus. And if you want to see any of this explained on your league page, just scroll to the bottom, league rules that breaks down what the specifics are for Triple Crowns.
And also a lot of people actually have like mentioned, hey, like why don't we give bonus points for the like normal heat race whole shot, which like would be cool, but like we go off of the like actual like bona fide results that the AMA posts, and like they don't keep track of like heat race whole shots, so it's not like readily available. And like if there's a close, whole shot on the heat, we just don't want to play like the guessing game.
Yeah. When we're doing results, we want to stay as close to official AMA results as possible. That being said, we discussed that this year, if we have any obvious discrepancy in especially whole shot, because apparently the AMA can be a little iffy with um, how accurately they're recording those whole shot results, we will override it if it's blatantly obvious from the broadcast. If you would like to know why, just go watch the 250 main event from the final race in Salt Lake City last year, where Jeremy Martin clearly got the whole shot, and they somehow credit it to Cody Schock, who came across the whole shot line in 14th place. That is still on the AMA's official results. It says Cody Schock got a whole shot, and I lost the fantasy championship because of it last year.
It cost Kelly the championship because of of the wrong input of whole shot.
Yeah.
So
But we owned it. We said we're going off AMA results, but yeah, this is a public declaration. We reserve the right to override it if it's clearly inaccurate this year. But all right, that's all we got. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks. Peace.
A2.